You might have heard the saying, "You can't leave your problems behind," implying that you cannot run away from your problems because they will follow you. My experience is that you can indeed leave many of your problems behind simply by changing your mindset, changing your routine, and yes, even changing your physical location. Welcome to Opportuno, episode 22, Relocation Therapy. There is a term in psychology called relocation therapy. Sometimes a change in your physical environment and/or a change in your routine can improve your mental well-being. Also, in psychology, the opposite effect of relocation therapy can happen in that the mere fact of moving to a different place can cause depression, known as relocation depression, similar to a child being homesick while at summer camp. I am going to talk about the positive effects of relocation, which is why relocation as a positive force is described as a therapy. Why do you think vacations have remained a constant tradition over the years? On a vacation, you can vacate yourself from your normal physical environment, as well as change your normal routine. With humans being creatures of habit and routine, it is very hard to change habits and routine, even when those habits and routines might need to be changed for our own welfare and the welfare of others. Your current location or routine may seem normal because it is where you are and what you do day in and day out. But what seems normal to you may not be the best routine for your life. Changing a location or routine that one considers normal is much more difficult than one might expect. When I say relocation, I am going to include also changing routines. I will quote a description of the word relocation in the definition of relocation by vocabulary.com, which is as follows. When you look at relocation, you notice the word locate, which comes from the Latin word locus, meaning place. Then look at the affixes. RE means again, and ION means the act of. When you put it all together, relocation means the act of placing again. If you refer to your relocation, you're describing putting yourself in a new place. End of quote. In that quote from vocabulary.com, notice how they defined the word relocation as the act of placing again. Act means there has to be action involved. Just the mere fact that action is being taken toward a solution, goal, or destination can be tremendously therapeutic. Of course, I would venture to add that wise action moving toward a solution, goal, or destination is also a key ingredient for successful relocation therapy, with wisdom sometimes coming from a multitude of counselors, as in the book in the Bible known as Proverbs, sometimes often referred to as the Book of Wisdom, written by King Solomon, who was known for being a powerful leader, having both great wisdom and wealth. I will read the 3 verses in the Bible from the book of Proverbs having to do with a multitude of counselors. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14. Where no counsel is, the people fall, but with the multitude of counselors there is safety. End of quote. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 22. Without counsel, purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established. End of quote. And Proverbs chapter 24, verse 6. For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war, and in the multitude of counselors there is safety. End of quote. Synonyms in the Merriam-Webster Dictionary for relocate denote taking some type of action. The following are synonyms to the word relocation: budge, dislocate, displace, disturb, move, remove, reposition, shift, transfer, and transpose. All these are action words that will create change when these words are acted upon. If you have been listening to my podcast, Opportuno, you have heard me say often that the fun is in the journey. If success is what you want, and if you have solid, sound action steps to follow in meeting your goals, then you are already successful. It is just a matter of time until your roadmap leads you to your desired destination. And if you believe fun is in the journey, then you are a success once you have begun the action steps to your desired destination. And once reaching a destination, your goal, then you should begin a new journey with more solid, sound action steps. The fun is in the journey and not the destination. 2 theories of why relocation is needed sometimes is theory number 1, that when there are destructive patterns of behavior and thought, relocating to new surroundings forces you to adopt new patterns of behavior and thought. Having new relationships, new surroundings, and objectives necessary to cope with a new location is much like a rail switch that guides a train from one railway to a different railway. Ever hear the term asleep at the switch? This term, asleep at the switch, originated in the 19th century when railroading was a prominent way of moving large items cross-country as well as carrying many passengers. The trainman's job was to pull levers to switch trains to different tracks, to set the trains on another course, and even to keep trains from colliding with each other. If a trainman neglected his duty of pulling the right lever at the right time to switch trains to a different track, then they would be accused of being asleep at the switch. Just as for a trainman to be asleep at the switch could prove detrimental to trains and passengers, you being asleep at the switch as to failing to make needed changes and relocations in your life when warranted can also be detrimental to yourself and others. A poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay, an American lyrical poet and playwright, as well as a Pulitzer Prize winner for poetry that lived from 1892 to 1950, reads as follows. Travel by Edna St. Vincent Millay. The railroad track is miles away, and the day is loud with voices speaking. Yet there isn't a train goes by all day, but I hear its whistle shrieking. All night there isn't a train goes by, though the night is still for sleep and dreaming, but I see its cinders red on the sky, and I hear its engine steaming. My heart is warm with friends I make, and better friends I'll not be knowing. Yet there isn't a train I wouldn't take, no matter where it's going. End of poem. And theory number 2, why relocation is sometimes needed or wanted, is that relocating is just part of what man does, like being ingrained in man's DNA. Hunter-gatherers were nomadic, having to travel to make use of different foods and climates across vast areas of land. Being nomadic was just a way of life. About 12,000 years ago, once man learned they could grow their own food and not have to travel as far or work as hard to get the food, man began to settle in one place rather than constantly relocating to find food. Archaeologists noticed, beginning about 12,000 years ago, bones of man that were found started to be lighter, meaning less travel, less work, due to now staying in one place by learning how to raise their own food, actually made their bones lighter. Some theorize that since prehistoric man was most likely nomadic much longer than current mankind in recorded history, staying in one place, the need to relocate is just part of man's genetic makeup. Sometimes you just need a change of environment, a change in what you're doing. If you ever feel like you're in a rut and not going anywhere, all it might take is just a good dose of relocation therapy. It might not necessarily mean physically moving to a different location, but merely as a change in what you're doing. A quote from many years ago went something like this: "There is more in 1 mile than I can discover in a lifetime." End of quote. If you feel you're getting nowhere and generally not happy about your current situation, just throwing a switch to a different routine, even if you're not physically moving to a different location, can make a difference for the better. Okay, now that I have talked about relocation therapy being good for us, what are you going to do about getting relocation therapy? Start out by planning out your relocation or changed routines in your current physical location. A study published in the journal Applied Research in Quality of Life showed that the highest levels of happiness were derived from actually planning a trip. The anticipation of an upcoming journey can many times be more enjoyable than the journey itself. Even if a trip you planned was never made, you receive happiness just by planning a trip. I would venture to say that if you plan out life's activities, you can also receive happiness while in the planning stage. It takes action, practice, and effort to get all those thoughts from your mind written down somewhere as action steps that are organized and prioritized chronologically, where items will be completed at certain times on certain dates. Once you make a habit of planning out relocation and changes in your routine, you'll find that the mere fact of writing down your plans will not only help you focus and condense your thoughts to writing, but will lead you to necessary to-do actions you haven't even thought of yet, simply because your written plan allows you to see what to-do item is needed next. I suggest you try using a mind map to help plan out relocation or changes you would like to make in your life. Using a mind map allows you to have a manageable progression of items required to complete your goal. Divide and conquer any difficult task. Break each task into as many steps as necessary to make it more doable and more manageable. As long as there is forward measurable progress, you will arrive. A free mind map you can use is called Simple Mind, available for the PC and Mac from the website www.simplemind.eu. To learn more about the use of mind maps, please listen to episode 6 in this Opportuno podcast entitled Create Your Action Steps Blueprint. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus, spelled Heraclitus, that lived in the city of Ephesus from the year 535 BC to 475 BC in what is now the country of Turkey. Then, during the life of Heraclitus, Ephesus was part of the Persian Empire, said the following: "The only constant in life is change." End of quote. Another quote by Heraclitus is as follows: "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." End of quote. One of Heraclitus' ideas was that everything flows. Just as a river constantly flows new water, time keeps flowing as well. If you step into the same river twice, there will always be changes in the new water flowing down the river, just as a passing of time changes everything. One of the hardest things to do is to accept change and adapt to change. Two different people may react to a similar change differently, with one person adapting and accepting the change, and the other person unable to adapt and accept the change. The Apostle Paul in the Bible was an example as to how to deal with change. In the Bible, this is what the Apostle Paul had to say about handling change and circumstances, and how to keep sadness from lingering in our lives. In the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verses 11 through 13, Apostle Paul said, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned, in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me." End of quote. And in the book of 1 Thessalonians, chapter 5, verses 16 through 18, Paul said, "Rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you." End of quote. If we are content, rejoicing, praying, and in everything giving thanks, then depression and sadness will not linger in our lives. Yes, if you are human, if not already, most of us will experience great sadness, grief, desperation, and feel there's no way out. You just have to keep pushing ahead, even rejoicing and giving thanks until you break out on the other side of that sadness, grief, and desperation. Robert Frost, an American poet, being the only poet to win 4 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry, gave us this quote, "The best way out is always through." End of quote. You might have heard the saying, "You can't leave your problems behind," implying that you cannot run away from your problems because they will follow you. My experience is that you can indeed leave many of your problems behind simply by changing your mindset, changing your routine, and yes, even changing your physical location. In the context of this talk on relocation therapy, added to relocation therapy is not only changing of your physical location, but changing your routine. Your current routine may not be necessarily what people would call bad habits, but your daily routine is not pushing you and people close to you forward to a better place. So if you had an inner desire to change, whether locations, routine, careers, etc., I will not be the one to criticize you. I will not be the one to tell you that you cannot run away from your problems or that you're doing a lot of activity, making changes just to block out unpleasant events that happened in your life. What I will do is to encourage you to make wise choices when making changes to your life. If you're making wise choices, in making changes, and some may accuse you of running from your problems. Just know that you are not necessarily running away from something, but you are running to something, running to a better climate, better environmental surroundings, new relationships, different cultures, running to be a missionary in a foreign land, or help those in need where your help is needed, running to discover new things and places, etc. Running to make changes in your routine that inwardly you feel do a greater good for yourself, the people closest to you, and all of mankind, even if there is less money or no money as a result of you relocating or making changes in your life, are worthy goals to run to. If you consider planet Earth as your home planet, then you're really never running away from home, but just simply moving to a different location of your home, planet Earth. We are all one family at our home, traveling on this spaceship we call Earth, our home. About 1,300 years ago, Prince Nagaya, spelled Nagaya, grandson to Japan's Emperor Tenma, spelled Tenmu, sent Ganjin, spelled Ganjin in Japanese, or Jianzhen, spelled Jianzhen in Chinese, 8 Hanji characters. Hanji, spelled Kanji, that represented mountain, river, different areas, wind, moon, same, sky. Translated to English as follows: even though we live at different places, we live under the same sky. End of quote. Also, Hafez, spelled Hafez, a 14th century Persian poet, said this: we are all one under the same sky and sun. End of quote. So, when you really think about it, we all live in the same place, planet Earth, under the same sky. Whether or not all humans, being as one, living under the same sky, means humans can live in perfect peace and harmony with each other is unlikely. However, there is no denying that we are all human, living as one on this one spaceship called planet Earth. And it is up to each of us to treat all human beings the same way we would like to be treated, as Jesus instructs us to in what we refer to as the Golden Rule, derived from the Bible in the following 2 Bible verses. In the Bible, in the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 12, reads as follows: therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. End of quote. Also, in the Bible, in the book of Luke, chapter 6, verse 31, reads as follows: and as ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. End of quote. Practicing this golden rule in your life will reward you with one of life's truest treasures, and that is true and loyal friends. If you can count on one hand true and loyal friends, or even only have just one true and loyal friend, then you are indeed fortunate. To motivate you to begin planning your relocation or routine change, the following are a few quotes about planning. Earl Nightingale said, "All you need is the plan, the roadmap, and the courage to press on to your destination." End of quote. Benjamin Franklin said, "For every minute spent in organizing, an hour is earned." End of quote. And Natalie France said, "To accomplish great things, we must not only act, but also dream, not only plan, but also believe." End of quote. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Men admire the man who can organize their wishes and thoughts in stone and wood and steel and brass." End of quote. Albert Einstein said, "The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." End of quote. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." End of quote. Leo Tolstoy said, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself." End of quote. Abraham Maslow said, "In any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or step back into safety." End of quote. Socrates said, "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." End of quote. Jim Rohn said, "Your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change." End of quote. And this last quote by an unknown author is perhaps the best advice how to get started making changes. Don't make a change too complicated. Just begin. End of quote. Yes, I agree, perhaps too many quotes. You never really truly believe until you experience a truth or a revelation for yourself. Once you experience a truth or revelation, then no one can steal that truth or revelation from you. I consider a meaningful quote as someone's truth or revelation they have condensed into words in order to share with others. In a sentence or two, their truth and revelation gleaned from life's experiences. After planning out your relocation or changed routines in your current physical location, begin taking action steps as outlined in your plans. If you've been having that wanderlust for travel or wanting a change in your routine and thought something might be wrong for thinking that way, I would say odds are in your favor that your inner self knows what is best for you and is just trying to manifest outwardly relocation of your physical surroundings or a change in your routine so you can be a more happy, content, and adventurous you. I will close out this podcast with a quote by Mark Twain, best known as an essayist, humorist, and novelist, which reads as follows: 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did. So, throw off the bow lines. Sail away from the safe harbor. Catch the trade winds in your sails. Explore. Dream. Discover. That's all for now. Please visit our website, opportuno.org. That's spelled OPORTUNO.org. Thank you.